This is the IBJ Podcast for the week of May 22nd, 2023, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. The 107th running of the Indianapolis 500 is in less than a week, weather permitting. So I have a quick quiz about some of the better-known recent drivers. Their names are Dan Wheldon, Kyle Kirkwood, J.R. Hildebrand, Jay Howard, Sage Karam, Oliver Askew, Spencer Pigot, and Rinus VeeKay. What do they all have in common? They all competed in the USF 2000 series, which is one of the feeder series to the IndyCar series. They race open-wheel cars, very similar to Indy cars, and on a lot of the same tracks. The next step up is the USF Pro 2000 series. From there, a driver could go to the Indy Next series, previously known as Indy Lights, and a logical step up from there is IndyCar. One of our two guests today is Al Morey IV. He's 17 years old and a rookie in the USF 2000 series, competing for Indianapolis-based team Jay Howard Driver Development. He lives in Fishers, and ever since he started racing karts at the age of 9, he has had his sights firmly on the upper rungs of professional racing. He passed a milestone earlier this month when he competed for the first time on the track at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and scored a personal best finish of 7th in USF 2000. That is not easy. When you think about it, very few people have ever raced an open-wheel car at 150 miles an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Of course, one of the reasons is that racing is very expensive. Running a car for a full season in the USF 2000 series can easily run several $100,000s for the driver. That includes tires, engineering and mechanical services, parts and labor, track testing, and travel, food, and lodging. Drivers can defray some of those costs with sponsor dollars, but they typically have to arrange those relationships themselves. Al Morey's father, also named Al Morey, says the cost of this season could be anywhere between $400,000 and $700,000, depending, for example, on how often the car is damaged. I spoke with a father and son team about what it's like in the trenches of professional racing, the costs involved, and how they work together to secure sponsors. Here's our conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast Al Morey IV, a rookie in the USF 2000 Racing Series. Al, thank you for making time.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
And we're joined by Al Morey III, his father. Thanks for inviting me over today.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for being here.
So Al, Al to my right, you are on what they at least used to call the road to Indy, right? Which is this multi-rung ladder system that can take you from where kids usually begin, like the karting racing series, all the way to competing to the IndyCar series. And it seems like every year or every few months even, you reach a new level or you reach a new rung on the ladder. But I would have to imagine that last weekend was a really big deal. You are a rookie in the USF 2000 series and you're racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, it was only a few days ago, but what now stands out to you about that experience?
Honestly, the whole thing of just being at home in front of friends and family and local sponsors here meant everything. I've been on plenty of tracks that are well known throughout the country and everything, but racing around Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there's just something special about it. Everyone always talks about, oh, you want to do well at Indy, you want to win at Indy, you want to race at Indy. And we did well at Indy and we raced at Indy. So it was quite an experience, I think, that I'll never forget any of it.
Had you ever tested on that track before?
We did. We went there in October of last year for a 2-day test, which was also surreal. You know, at the time, I'd never driven there. So coming back there, we came in with a bit more experience and pace. So it made this weekend even better, actually.
So yeah, 2 years ago, you were competing, I think, for the first time in outdoor karting.
I was.
Right, 2 years ago. 2 years later, you're driving what is basically a smaller version of a regular Indy car at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. How big a jump in driving is that?
It's really big. You know, you can talk about go-karts being, mine will do 70-ish miles an hour, right? And then this car does 150, which, it seems, okay, double the speed, but at the same time, it's everything about it's quicker. The cornering, the braking, the acceleration, everything about the car is more physical to drive. So coming up that quickly, there's a lot of things to adapt to very quickly, and different driving styles, different racecraft as to how to race your opponents and things. So coming up quickly, it's just, you just have to learn very, very fast. This is what can and can't be done. So
there's just so much more at stake as well. I mean, if you're going like wheel to wheel in a cart, the consequences there of a problem aren't that great. I would assume in this car, the consequences are very large.
Yes. In a go-kart, yeah, you can knock wheels together and, maybe go off the track a little bit. In the car, if you go off the track, there's a lot of momentum there. You're just going to keep going for a little while. And especially if you start to knock wheels, then you start to get airborne with the car. So you got to be careful not to do that. We see that in Indianapolis this way. Not me, luckily, but my friend's had his car, got another car ramped over the top of him because of wheel-to-wheel contact. So there's a lot that goes on with the cars that doesn't happen so much in karting.
Oh my God. Okay. Explain kind of what happened last weekend. They called it the Indy Grand Prix, I take it. And it was an event in the USF 2000 series. And it's like the fifth event of the season.
Third event.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But there were three different races that you competed in. Why do they have more than one race?
Well, they do it because our races are a bit shorter, obviously, than IndyCar. IndyCar, I think, did 85 laps. Ours are only 15 laps. So they do it more, and that gives us as drivers more opportunity to learn as well. If we only do one race and then say someone takes you out or whatever on the third lap, congratulations, you just finished 3 laps in a whole weekend. So 3 laps, I think, gives us more of an opportunity to really develop ourselves, which is really the whole point, of the USF series, is to get us ready for the faster cars and eventually lead to IndyCar. So if that experience is taken away by only having one race, then it starts to get complicated as, I only got to do so many laps here. I didn't get to take everything I needed to out of the weekend because I couldn't compete in the same amount of laps as what I should have.
So you finished all 3 races?
I did.
How'd you do?
The first race on Friday went very well. I had a mishap in qualifying. I started 18th, but was able to drive up to 7th at the end of the race, which was a new career best in USF 2000 for me. So we were very happy with that. Saturday didn't go quite as planned. I was running, I believe, in 10th, and I was taken out into turn 10. Someone went for a gap that just simply wasn't there and drove right in the side of me. So that was disappointing. I did end up finishing just 2 laps down. Certainly not really what I wanted. I haven't finished laps down before, so that was kind of upsetting, but tried to clear my head enough so that race 3 would go okay. Tried to set some fast laps at the end to qualify then for race 3. I believe I started 15th. No, nothing amazing, but salvaged from race 2. We figured that'd be okay. And I got up to 10th within first or second laps, so it was moving along pretty well. Caution came out, and on the restart, someone checked up in front of me, so I hit him and then got hit from the rear. So it ended up bending the back of the car up pretty well. I finished 13th with a pretty bent up car, so it was a salvage race, to be honest. I think we would have been in the top 10, but we'll take 13th, not where we really want to be, but for the car's condition, I think it was an okay result.
So now what happens to the car?
Right now?
Yeah.
My engineers have not a super difficult job putting it back together, but they've got some parts to repair and just replace, to be honest, because there's only so much you can do with bent bits on a race car. So unfortunately, there's going to be some bills coming in for the car, but they'll get it all put back together for Lucas, no problem.
Yeah, again, I'm not an expert. My understanding of these cars right up to the IndyCar level is, they're kind of like Lego sets almost. You can switch out these parts very easily.
Yes.
And so, if something is broken, you just take it out, switch another one in.
Mm-hmm. You can pretty much do that. What's nice about the car is that the whole thing's built around the tub that we sit in, the carbon fiber tub. So say you run into something and break the nose off the car. There's 4 bolts that take the nose and the wing off the car. You put a new one on and keep going. It's not quite what you see in Formula One. They take it off in 4 seconds, put a new one on. It takes us a little bit longer, but come to something like in qualifying, I'll put this for an example. I bent a tie rod with some contact, and that takes a little longer to repair, probably 15, 20 minutes or so if they really got to it, but not something that can usually be repaired during a race. So the car comes in, they repair it, and it's all good for the next race. It's just not super, super quick, but it can be done.
So you were one of several drivers at the Indy Grand Prix competing for Jay Howard driver development. Can you tell me a little bit about Jay Howard driver development? What is that, and how did that relationship come about?
Sure. So Jay Howard, I'll start with him. He's the heart of our team, right? So he was an IndyCar driver and competed in 3 Indy 500s himself. And before that, he raced in USF 2000, just as I am. Has, I think, the 4th most wins in history in USF 2000. Skipped what's now USF Pro 2000, went to Indy Lights, now Indy Next, and became the champion there and went to IndyCar. So his motorsport experience there's a lot of it. He has quite a bit of experience, which is very helpful as a team owner because he's been there through everything that we've been through already. He can help us through just about anything that comes up. And he's built himself an amazing team around him that helps us as well, mechanics and engineers and crew and all that. And so what he does is takes drivers from karting like myself, and his first step is Formula 4. That's his entry-level car. And then from there, he'll send you to USF 2000, which he also has, and then on to USF Pro 2000. And from there, if the driver has enough pace and talent and whatnot, he has contacts in Indy Next that he can send you on to. My friend Christian Rasmussen that won 2 years with Jay Howard was sent on to Andretti Motorsport at the end because Jay Howard has no Indy Next car, so we sent him to Andretti. Which he's had a very successful career on so far. I think he's leading the points right now, actually, in Indy Next in his 2nd year.
Now, for the next part, I'm going to rely a little bit more on Al III. I'm not an expert by any means, but my understanding is that to be competitive as a racer, you also need money.
That is true.
This is not a stick and ball sport.
Yeah, no.
It's incredibly equipment intensive.
Absolutely.
Can you estimate for me, how much is it going to cost for Al to race this full season in USF 2000?
It's hard to put an exact number on it. You sign a contract with your team, but that includes races. Usually, and it depends on the contract. Sometimes they include tires, sometimes they don't. So you may pay for tires during the year. You also will then pay for testing. So testing includes getting the car there, having your crew there, fuel, tires, track fees. So all those add up. So you have to look at how many test sessions you're going to have. Then there's travel on top of that. So a good number can be anywhere from $400,000 to $700,000 a year.
Wow, big range.
Yeah. And that just depends because a lot of that too is damage. Because if something happens to the car, that's not included. So you end up paying that price. So that could be as little as bend a few parts in the front end, or as one of our teammates did down in Sebring, destroyed the entire car. The only thing left was the tub and the halo, thank God. He was fine. But everything else, engine, transmission, tires, wings, everything else was destroyed.
So the team owns the car?
Yes, we basically, it's kind of like a lease. We just pay them up front and say, okay, we want the car for the year, and then he provides everything we need to actually be at the race.
So all the stuff that you would need to race, like you said, gasoline, for example.
Exactly.
Mechanic help.
Yep.
Parts.
Yep.
And that is going to Jay Howard driver development, right?
Yes.
So you are paying him for the ability to create your career.
Correct.
Essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
Instead of buying a car and running your own team, which is even more expensive.
Right, which would be possible if you wanted to.
Absolutely, you can. But running a one-car team is really difficult, and your costs escalate because instead of having them spread out amongst many, now you have to focus just on one, and all those people are there for that. So you're paying that engineer just for you. Whereas when we're leasing a car from Jay, the engineer works with my son, he works with Eva Goris, he works with Lockie Hughes. So that spreads that cost out some.
Gotcha. And so, so you have the the expertise of a giant team,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, relatively giant team.
Correct.
To help you get where you want to go.
Correct.
Literally. But then on top of that, you are traveling, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to get yourself to wherever in the country is. Right.
Yeah,
First race of the season was St. Pete, probably.
St. Pete,
Florida.
Correct.
Right. You got to buy your own food, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now Jay does serve lunch, for the guys. But as far as breakfast, dinner, you're on your own.
But the big bulk of it is what you have agreed to pay Jay Howard.
Correct.
For the ability to race a car.
Correct.
Essentially, and all the things that you would need for a car.
For him to provide us with the opportunities.
Right.
Yes.
And then the end game is to be another major IndyCar racer or F1 racer where you have renown, you have 10 million followers, you have sponsors who want to throw money at you, and then your career really takes off. Am I gathering that right?
Just about, yeah.
Okay, great.
I think more of the thrill comes from actually racing for me. The followers are one thing. We love our fans, but it's more personal for me. It's about driving, and the money comes along with it. You hope so, at least. But I think for any true driver, it's more than just the money that comes from the contract.
So to defray the costs, you have relationships with sponsors, and you guys have to go out and get your own sponsors.
Yes, Jay has some sponsors that cover the entire team. He brought some of those along from his Indy career. When he decided to retire, he wanted to build this driver development team. So some of the sponsors came along with him to help him with that. So that also helps defer some of our costs, which is nice. But as far as the rest of it, yes, we continually look for sponsors, for partnerships more than just giving money. A lot of people go out and just put their hand out. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in building things that Al could help represent and make them feel like they're getting something too. It's not, we don't want it to be a one-way street, because that's not how it should work.
Yeah. I didn't get the impression that it's as simple as like, hey, you're my sponsor, I'll put your name on my car. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really a whole a relationship that needs to be built where, they really kind of feel like they're a part of the team.
Yes. And you want them to be excited about it. And in our case, use Al as someone to advertise for them, to come to events, to do things that will invite, especially at his age at 17, he's good with not only people that are older, but he's very good with children. So it kind of brings a new group into whoever we are working with at the time. So in our case with Indy Boat Company, we actually have one of their boats, and Al is very good with the kids, and the kids are the ones you want to bring along, because the parents have a boat, but when the kids get older, they're going to want a boat, and they're going to remember working with Al or talking to him, and that's what we try to do, is try to make that so it's a good two-way street.
But again, you guys are going out and forging those relationships,
yes,
independent of Jay Howard.
Yes.
And so, the sky is the limit. If you guys were the world's greatest marketers, they potentially all could pay for itself.
Oh,
somehow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But any racer will tell you don't go into it to get rich right off the bat. That's a long ladder you got to climb to get to that point. But, for Al at this point in his career, I know what drives him is the actual drive. There's something when he gets in that car that just clicks, and then he takes off, and I just don't worry about it. So he's in it all the time because he loves racing. It's not because he wants followers or he wants kids at school to think he's cool or any of this. It's because he has an absolute love for what he's doing.
Okay, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm. With more than 800 attorneys in 8 primary Midwest markets and the District of Columbia, we provide solutions to the business issues facing middle market and emerging companies alike. We do this through a highly collaborative and inclusive team approach. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
All right, we're back with this week's edition of the IBJ Podcast and my conversation with USF 2000 driver Al Morey IV and his father, Al Morey III. Your sponsors, who are they?
So my 3 main sponsors right now, we'll start with my first one, which is Indy Boat Co. So they're a boat dealership here in the Indianapolis area. They take care of my boat over the winter time. They take care of a lot of boats. They deal boats just like a car dealership does, but with boats. They do a very good job. They've been friends of ours for more than just the time that I've been racing. So they were very welcome to coming on board and on board. Didn't even mean to do that.
Very good. Pun not intended.
But they've been super supportive. My second one was my Uncle Carl's bar in Sarasota, Florida, the B. Rafferty's Bar and Grill. He's been in my life for as long as I've been alive, so I was very happy to bring him aboard and have his name on the side of the car. That meant a lot to us. And then our third one that we have right now is Reese Nichols Jewelers. BJ Nichols is a very big motorsport fan himself. He's got a Porsche team, so we went and approached him. We've done a lot of business there in the past, and we sat down with him, I think, for over an hour and just talked about motorsport, which was lovely, more than just talking about sponsorships and whatnot. It was nice to have, that's part of the relationship building we're talking about, just talking about racing or talking about whatever it might be. But it's nice to have a supporter like BJ with Reese Nichols that knows what it's all about and knows what we're up against with trying to find sponsors and things. So we're very happy to have him aboard as well.
So, Al, I would assume that a lot of your job is continuing just to shake the trees and trying to see what else you can come up with.
Pretty much every day. Always trying to think of where we might fit in with a company. Right now, we're negotiating with a couple of national companies that we're trying to bring on board for entire years-long relationship. But it's always a challenge to find them to want to release those funds. Again, part of it's proving what we can do for them. And as Al's getting better all the time and finishing higher, that means he is seen more. And the more you can show, the better you go. So it's pretty much every day I'm trying to figure out. And I didn't go to school for marketing, but I'm trying to figure out who can we approach, what can we offer them, how can we get them to jump on board. And luckily I have someone that's really well spoken that is not afraid to get in front of people and explain what we're doing.
So here's the indelicate question. I'm assuming that the sponsors that you currently have really do not cover that full $400,000 to $700,000. So you probably have pretty good savings in order to handle the cost this season.
Of mine?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you guys are covering the vast majority of this.
I cover almost all of it.
Right. And then what did you do when you're retired now, but what did you do?
I worked in construction, residential construction for years. I worked for Paul Estridge. I worked for Zering when they came to town. I worked for Rotland for some time, and then just formed my own consulting company after that. I really just wanted to spend more time with him. So, because my dad died when I was real young. He died when he was 63. And so I wanted to do what I could to spend time with him. And that's kind of the way I set myself up. And so one day I made the mistake of taking him to K1, and that was that. I've tried to get him onto badminton. He won't do it. But
what's wrong with badminton?
It's not fast enough.
That would make sense. So great. So you've had a very successful career, hardworking, and also fortunate enough that you can pay this kind of money, which is, really not in the realm of possibility for a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh no, it's still a stretch. Every day hurts when you get an invoice and you look at it and you go, wow. Okay, well, send him a check. So that's, we knew that going in. My wife and I had discussed it, and, we want to do everything we can to give him his dream. And he's very humble about it. He doesn't take it for granted. He doesn't, expect it. He just is thrilled every second he gets to be in a race car. And so this time now, we said, yeah, we can do this, and we should be able to get into next year, but we've got to find some money to help us get through the series.
You feel comfortable going to the end of this year and at least starting the following year?
Yes, we do.
Does that put pressure on you to perform?
I think there's pressure all the time as a driver. I don't see it as a desperate situation. I think a lot of drivers have that sort of desperate situation is if I don't win, I'm not going to get any attention and we won't have enough funds to start next year. I feel comfortable enough that we are fortunate enough to have enough to get me going in the proper way. I'll put it this way. We're not setting unrealistic goals that are putting way too much pressure on me behind the wheel of a car. Because I've seen it with my own eyes, the driver being pressured too much and then not performing to what we know we can do. So I look at it as I'm going to perform to the best of my abilities, but I'm not going to try to overextend myself in any way that could end up in harm to the car or just backwards sliding, really. Because if you overdrive the car, then you wreck the car and then you're out even more money, and then that worsens the situation. So that really didn't help anything.
For sure. So what is the next rung that you're shooting for? What is the goal for you now?
So next rung, next year we're definitely going to stay in USF 2000. I need more experience there. But then after that, hopefully USF Pro 2000, which is the step right below Indy next. It's based off the same tub that we have, so the same chassis, if you want to call it a chassis. The same motor, just with more horsepower. It's got more aerodynamics. They're about 5 to 6 seconds, depending on the track, a lap faster than our cars are now. And that pretty much continues up the ladder. They pretty much get 5-ish seconds faster a lap as you keep going. So that car is similar to ours, but also very different to ours and how it handles and drives and things. So going up to that step will be a good step. Won't be anything too huge or anything, I don't think. But it'll definitely be a good step. So
if you win the championship, where you currently are, the USF 2000, there's a pretty good prize.
There is.
What is that?
That's a $450,000 check for you. That goes directly into then paying for the USF Pro 2000 series for next year.
Oh, so that's graduation right there.
Yes. It sounds very glamorous, but we're not walking away with $450,000 in our pockets going, hey, look at me.
Oh.
You just you put it to the next year, and it's kind of a series helping you along so you can progress as well.
More like a scholarship.
Yes.
So scholarship. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. So they're saying, okay, you have done great.
Keep going.
You keep going.
Yes.
You're a rookie next year in the graduate school of racing.
Right.
And and this money is going to go to graduate school.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. But you don't necessarily have to win to move up.
You don't. I'll put this as an example. Someone who's very talented I've seen on track, Miles Rowe, who's in the USF Pro 2000 series now. He was in USF 2000 last year, and I think he missed the championship by like 5 points or something. Like, it wasn't a lot, but he's very, very talented. He's already won, I think, 3 of the 5 races this year for him. So you don't have to win. It's that you see that there's pace there, that you can move up.
So in the meantime, you still have to take your senior year of high school.
Right. All my spare time.
In your spare time.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah. How has that been? I mean, balancing, what I'm sure is a very demanding, I guess you would call this an avocation with, trying to be a great student.
Right. I mean, this year's my junior year, and a lot of people say that junior year is the hardest year of high school. Of course, I won't know until I graduate. But it's definitely a grind. I'm not going to say it's easy or that it's not any work at all. I mean, most weeks, I'll put it this way. The week of my first race in St. Petersburg, I missed the entire week of school. So coming back, teachers this year have been super cool. They've just said, hey, don't worry about it. Focus on your driving. We'll catch you up when you get back, which is super nice, to be honest. And then I usually have the same amount of days that I was gone to make it up, whatever it is. But usually just assignments and things. Say for St. Petersburg, I missed 5 days. I was done in 3. So there's certainly a level of work that comes into it. My time management is certainly better coming out of all of this. Going into senior year, that's something helpful I think will be a life skill as well. But I've study halls and things, and every minute of those is being used for work as it can be, and using teachers' help to my advantage when I can, and just allotting time to different assignments, and when saying, oh, I can't do a test at home, but I can do this assignment at home. So if I do that now, then I'll have time to do the test at school. So there's things that I've learned how to do assignments quickly at school, but properly, because I'm not just going to do work to get it out of the way. It's always done properly. It's something that's really important to me. So it's something I'm ever getting better at, of getting work done when it needs to be done. And what's funny sometimes is I get things done even before my friends who've been there for the entire week. So
your friends, I'm sure right now, are fielding questions from their relatives about where they want to go to college. Is that something that conversation you guys are also having now?
Absolutely. We've gone and visited just Purdue so far. We're going to visit. We want to stay in the Indiana area because of headquarters are here and we're the racing capital of the world. I don't really want to go anywhere.
Yeah, so many of the racing teams are based here.
Right. So it wouldn't be too logical for me to move out of state, but definitely going to college. Not exactly sure what for yet, but it's certainly something that needs to be done.
So that's something you definitely plan to be doing in your senior year, is continuing to apply to colleges and then going to college.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And Al Senior here is nodding his head very approvingly, like,
Absolutely.
yes, you're definitely going to college.
Well, his mother's a teacher at HSE. She's a kindergarten teacher. So she's always handled the education side of it. I handle the rest. But yeah, we told him that years ago when racing started. I said, school's first, racing second. When you get, you can race all through school. And, if something happens in the middle of college and he ends up going to some big league somewhere, that's what it's going to be, and he can come back to school, but he's got to go to school. And education's important.
And you guys know better than I do, but I feel like I've heard stories of maybe some Indy Next drivers who also go to school at least part-time, like a Butler, for example.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people have come from Butler, as you know, Doug Bowles and Ed Carpenter, Sarah Fisher. There's a lot of people that have gone to Butler, and they have a racing program now, I guess. In marketing and public speaking, of course, they've always had a radio and TV division, but a lot of things may work out for him. So we're looking into that too.
So there definitely could be a combination of school and racing.
Correct.
A couple years from now.
Correct.
For college. Okay.
Absolutely.
Wow. Speaking as also a father.
Okay.
Dude.
What?
I am so stressed out about how much school costs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, that's all part of it.
There's got to be a racing scholarship somewhere.
We'll see. I mean, we have hired a, I don't know what they call them, quite honestly, but it's someone that helps us find those types of things and will help us with filling out some of the information and so we can get him in the right place at the right time. But yeah, it's not cheap. There's no doubt.
So it is Tuesday. You don't have a race this weekend, but you do the following weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have one. I think we're testing on Thursday, just like a general, hey, come drive on the track again, get it back familiar. I've only done 2 days of this track. What makes this weekend going to be a bit different than regulars is this is an oval race. I've never done an oval race before. So that extra testing day on Thursday will be quite beneficial for me to be able to drive. So Friday we race at night, which also makes this unique. So it'll be 8:30 p.m., which will be the race. So I think we'll be under the lights by then. I think the sun will be pretty close. So I'm looking forward to that. And that'll be our last race in May.
That's outstanding. That's going to be so exciting.
I'm excited.
My God. So this is the oval at Lucas Oil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Under the lights. Okay. Wow. I'm jealous as hell. That's amazing. So let me ask you just in closing, for somebody who is karting right now, or is even a young kid just really wants to get into racing, what is the one thing that you could tell them right now that would be helpful?
Progress is everything. You don't have to go out one day and shave. Let's say you're going out to Newcastle Motorsports Park, which is where I like to go kart. You don't have to go out there and shave off a second a day of your time to be suddenly fast. As long as you're making progress and you have a clear goal as to where you want to be in short years time or what you want to do, I think that's most important, because if you don't have a goal, it's hard to visualize what you need to be doing to get to that goal. And if you're having tough time visualizing what it is that you're supposed to be doing, then I think some of the thoughts in racing could get lost in terms of needing to improve. So I think as long as you're improving and you have a goal, I think that's what's important.
Did you always have this goal?
I wanted to be a part of racing from a young age. I always would watch IndyCar, especially with Dad, and NASCAR and drag racing and Formula 1. You named it. We watched it if it had wheels and raced. That's what started me getting into the indoor karting, was I wanted to do some sort of racing. But I knew as soon as I saw one of those open wheel cars in Jay's shop when we first went up there, I was like, oh, I got to drive one of those. And when I first got to drive one, then it turned into, I got to race one of these. So
the road just opened up in front of you, and you've been on that road ever since. And
yes, sir.
It has not been confusing to you about what you want.
No, sir. No, it's been, let's go do it.
All right.
Well,
All right.
Seat time's important.
That is true.
I mean, at K1, he's already run over 600 races.
700 now.
700?
Mm-hmm.
So seat time's the biggest thing. The more time you can put in, the more you're going to get down to those little bitty. You're looking at some points you're looking for tenths, hundredths, thousands. And it sounds crazy, but that's what you're trying to do by moving your car just this little bit pick that up. And so seat time's another big one. And even going back to spending time at Newcastle, or he still races at K1, that's just more seat time and more input on how to drive. So that's an important one.
Seat time, certainly. I agree with that, because even for Newcastle, I mentioned before that driving a go-kart is certainly a lot different than driving the race car. But at Newcastle, the seat time that Dad was talking about, it keeps your reactions sharp as well. And just having some of those things, even steering inputs, you got to keep some of those, like over the winter time when I can't be in a race car, go up to K1, keep the skills sharp, get the seat time in, and try to improve in things that I can drive better. So
my thanks again to Al IV and Al III. You can read more about their challenges in the USF 2000 series in the latest issue of IBJ. And folks, before you get on with the rest of your week, there are a few other features in the latest issue I want to bring to your attention. First up, India-based tech giant Infosys lit up Indianapolis like a fireworks show in 2018, spotlighting its plans for a $245 million, 141-acre campus and jobs for 3,000 local employees. As IBJ's Susan Orr reports, the reality 5 years later is considerably dimmer. Also in this week's issue, Mickey Shuey unpacks the economics of buying corporate suites at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, including the cost to suite holders and the potential returns. And John Russell examines the possible ramifications of a new state law that aims to help Hoosiers get more affordable prescription drugs. You can find these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or, of course, online at IBJ.com. And I will say it is easier to access all of the latest local news about business and politics and all of IBJ's data on Central Indiana's business community and economy if you're a subscriber. And you may not know that we have wrapped all of IBJ's content together now with all of the stories and columns and podcasts from our sister publication, Inside Indiana Business. And now works out to just about $3 per week for actionable information about every notable business development across the state. You won't find Indiana's story told with this kind of breadth and depth anywhere else. Just go to IBJ.com and click on the subscribe button. And thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ Podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.